Welcome to the BAM Biz Talk podcast. We're here today. My name is Angel Garcia with Michael Crane. We are BAM, and our guest for the day is Mr. Cody Reeves, multi-business owner of the Eskimo Hut Midland, co-owner of the Blue Door, and owner of New Angle Capital. Wow, I'm already tired, man. How you doing today, Cody?
Great. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Yes, sir. So tell us, you have a lot going on. And it's very interesting to us because, we work with entrepreneurs every day. So we want to put your picture up on a plaque and say, entrepreneur, that's what that is, So kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in putting together these companies.
Okay. I grew up in Midland, Texas, and went off to college, came back home after college, did a little work in the service industry, was at Outback Steakhouse for several years, moved up through management with them. And then when I found it was time to leave, I wanted to be on my own. I liked being my own boss, liked being in management, and felt I could run a business pretty successfully. Found the Eskimo Hut franchise at the time and decided to bring that back to Midland. So I moved back home and opened the Eskimo Hut in 2002. So it's been a little over, almost 21 years now.
Awesome.
So
congratulations on that.
Yeah,
That's
really.
a stint.
Well, thank you. Been a lot of fun. I opened a second location in Odessa later that same year. Had that open for about 14 years. So that was a lot of fun as well. And then it just stopped making money in Odessa, and I closed that one down. But then I guess, being in the service industry brought, Eskimo Hut is a service industry type job. We walk out to your car, we take your order, we make your drinks, we bring them to you. Or, we bring you your 6-pack of beer or, your soda, whatever you would like.
The smokes.
Right, yeah, and absolutely. Used to sell tons of tobacco, and, we had to pivot off of that. But, and then 2011 came along, and we started seeing just different bars in different cities. Traveled a lot, in the early 2000s, and saw really nice bars in other cities, and always just had heard, Midland's kind of 10 years behind on everything. Yep. And we said, you know what? Midland needs a nice, good, non-smoking bar in town. And started putting plans together. And in 2012, we opened the Blue Door. And it was the first non-smoking bar in Midland, Texas.
And one of my favorite.
Yeah, awesome.
There you go.
Yeah.
So crazy enough for it to be non-smoking at the time. But, even had one investor back out because he said a non-smoking bar would never work in Midland, Texas. And
you're forgetting about the 10-year lag there.
Right, exactly, right? Yeah. So turned out it was a great investment, a great business to open, and we found our niche and really just kind of took off with that. And that's been going on for, since 2012. So we're into our 11th year at this point. So we'll hit that until the summer, but it's been pretty successful there. So, and then New Angle Capital, I started into 2021 into 2021. And so I've had that just about a year and a half now. And just really that is all about helping other businesses go out and find money for their businesses. A lot of times businesses need money quickly. Sometimes they need money that maybe their credit score is not the best, and they need an equity investor. And I've aligned myself with about 42 different lenders that help businesses move quickly. Sometimes you go to the bank and you want to get a loan, and you'll spend 3 or 4 months waiting to get an answer on whether or not it's a yes or no.
90 days later.
Right, and it's a no, and you've wasted all the time. So a lot of my lenders can move quickly. They'll tell you yes or no. Sometimes it's no quickly, but at least and you're not waiting around.
Right.
And then sometimes they can have you funded in sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes a month. From doing the initial, depending on how big of a loan and the type of loan that it is.
So is that for already existing business, or do you deal with startups as well? Or?
Both. Both startups, and existing businesses who just maybe they would need working capital or expansion, or maybe they need new equipment. Maybe they just got a big order and they need, new chemicals or new
equipment.
New equipment, new ingredients to make whatever they need to sell, and they get a big purchase order and they don't have the capital to go buy the things they need to make the thing they make, so that really helps. So.
And capturing on that opportunity in the market. So that's really important that there's somebody like you available.
Right.
I don't mind saying maybe we could use you for a few of ours.
There you go.
I see a lot of different businesses come through here, to be honest. I see the startup, snow cone kind of guy, and My God, oil companies or supply companies are just starting off. A wide variety of things that I know there's ups and downs in every business. And I know that your startups have had to maybe come across some sort of barricades that you had to get around. And some of those can be quite stressful.
Sure.
You mentioned getting to market quickly. I think it's really important as well, because if you've got a niche or something, you want to get it out there before maybe somebody else comes along and takes your idea.
Right.
What are some of your barricades that you had to go through with some of your businesses?
I think when you first start a business and you're learning, you're kind of learning what your strengths are, right? And you probably know one or two of them. A great chef may open a restaurant and he's a great chef, but running a business is not being a chef, and those are different things. So, with the Eskimo Hut, opening that up, I was actually pretty good at the time of working with younger staff and teaching them how to have a job. I remember plenty of times having to teach someone how to sweep, which sounds ridiculous, right? Everybody learns to sweep a floor when they're growing up, but no, they don't.
No, they don't.
So some of those things, I felt I was pretty good at those, but then there were other things that I wasn't great at. I'm still not great at. I'm not great at marketing, but figuring out what those things are, finding the right people to help you with that so you can get it done properly, because we all have our own set of strengths, but very few of us have multiple strengths and can do everything well. So
Absolutely, that's very true.
So it's I think finding those out, with the Eskimo Hut, working with vendors was a challenge at first, because they didn't want to they hear of all these places that are going to open up, and then they buy a few things and they don't sell much, and then you have to convince them that you know what you're doing and you're willing to buy the product from them and to move the product. They don't want to just sell it to somebody and let it sit there for 6 months.
Right.
So, whether it's Budweiser or Marlboro or whatever product it was.
They need it turning.
That's right. That's right. So
And you need it turning.
right, absolutely.
As a business owner, you got to, it's a mutual kind of deal, right?
Right, absolutely. So, when the Blue Door opened up, one of my biggest challenges in the first probably 6 weeks was I was out talking to customers all the time. And after about 6 weeks, I was like, I need to step back and not talk to customers for a while, because everybody just kept telling me what I should change about my bar. And they were like, you need more TVs. You need a pool table over here. And I was like, I was at a point, I was like, that's a really cool idea for your bar. That's not what this bar is, and that's okay.
Let me know
I'm
when
like,
you got that going. I'll go visit.
I'm like, but it was like I had to figure out, hey, I need to step back, because it was frustrating. People and some of those people are still our great customers, and some of them went to find that other bar, and that's okay. So that was kind of a struggle for me in the beginning, and finding the right people to run it was pretty crucial. I think we've narrowed that down, and my partner Erica at the Blue Door, she takes care of the staffing and trains them, and I think our average bartender stays for over 2 years. And in the bar industry, that's
really good.
Yeah, that's really good here in
unheard
Midland.
of. Yeah, so I think most bar industries are 6 months.
Yeah.
So, but just happy to have found those certain niches that keep it working. So
So just talking about the employments that the workforce, because I know that's the big issue here in the Permian. Right. It's finding labor that you can depend on. It's going to be there. They're not going to call. So all the issues. Mm-hmm. So how do you deal with that? How do you keep?
I think it's important that we also always listen to our staff. Listen to what their needs are, what their concerns are, and help them work through those things, right? And the other thing is, and this is one of the biggest things I've tried to focus on, is setting clear expectations and communicating those to your staff. Because if they know exactly what you need out of them, they're going to do it. People inherently want to be a good person. They want to do a good job for you. I think it's very important to set those clear expectations, tell them when they're doing right, tell them when they're doing wrong. It's not an attack on their character. It's just it's something like, hey, this is the action that you're doing that's not right. Mm-hmm. Let's fix that. I mean, you're still a great person. You just did the wrong thing. Now let's move on, So I think those things are really important with staffing. And then being consistent with everybody, not letting one person get away with something that you won't let somebody else get away with it. I think that kind of consistency is really important, and it lets the staff know that they're all equal, they all are valued, and they all, because of that, they continue to stay with you for a while. So
I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
I do too, and I think it's the culture that you're trying to build
Culture.
that really makes it successful.
Right.
So you just put out two key points. One is to communicate,
right,
and the other is to make sure that you have a plan. Both of those are extremely important to drive success.
right,
So I think that's really a big problem, even in a lot of different businesses here. We don't communicate with staff. They don't know what to expect. They get frustrated. Before you know it, they're out there looking for another job, another opportunity, as many of them would say. And it's really about not knowing what you want or expect from me.
right,
And I come to work every day, and I don't know really what I'm supposed to do. So a lot of that is, a pick up and leave, see you later kind of outburst. So you're still developing the idea of how do I make something possible. I know a lot of companies right now are doing onboarding,
right,
where they actually have put together documents that you read and acknowledge the expectations of the establishment and the direction maybe as to how you can go from one level to another level. And the expectation maybe of what your reviews may look like. And typically what we're expecting is really a part of that review. I think those are really good things, even for a small business. Everybody's got the same idea, the same page, and the same direction.
right.
What's your thoughts, Angel?
No, I like that. So it's about culture. It's about establishing, you said it earlier, expectations.
Right.
So if you can establish those expectations in a formal manner, communicate it clearly, both in document form and just in personal discussion, to set those, what you expect and what they should expect from you.
Right.
And just keep that consistent. And I think if you get the people in there, you can keep them for longer.
Right.
I think that's what is happening with you with the Blue Door with 2+ years. That's impressive.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we're very happy with it, and we'll just continue to move along that same path, I think. And the culture always changes at some point, right? I mean, so you have to kind of adapt and pivot with that as well. But I mean, it's not hard to sit down and figure out what your culture is. So.
Right, your internal culture.
Right.
Because the outer culture is constantly shifting. Right. So it's going to affect your internal culture. Right. But I think as long as you stay as consistent as possible, you can maintain to a large deal, be buffered, I guess, from the outside world to a certain extent. There's no perfection here, but I think that's something definitely business owners should strive for.
Right. Absolutely.
A lot of things that we talk about, especially in our neck of the woods, is a business model. We often say, or I do, that it's the heartbeat of the business is to have a business model that connects all different buckets and enables a connection, if you will, to other types of entities of the business model. I think one of the key components, in fact, that I usually tell my clients is, key partners should have a connection to revenue streams. Otherwise, why are they a key partner?
Right.
When we forget about that, we talk in the restaurant business, even vendors, I constantly will negotiate with vendors to try to get a better price. And of course, to get the better price, I have to order more. And then I got to worry about the idea, will it go stale in my freezer or my walk-in? And how do I get it from there to the table and yet capitalize on the margins that I've created for myself? Many, many challenging things. But when we get into the business model, we kind of get the idea of the core process. I like to think of the core process maybe as a core value chain that comes in from one side of the company and exits the other side of the company, creating all the things I need to have happen to make my business work or to be profitable. I typically will say that it's the E plus E equals P. Efficiency plus effectiveness equals profitability. And of course, if I'm doing everything effective and efficiently, I should up my production and yet be able to supply demand just in time, GIT. So JIT. So in looking at some of the things that's inside the business model, how does the business model work for you?
I think in our business, getting the customers in is probably our biggest challenge. But then educating them, knowing what we have, and then giving them the best experience in the business model.
Like keyword.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's something that, say the Eskimo Hut, when people pull through, so many people are just foreign to the idea
Right.
of alcohol to go, even though,
It's been around.
Pinkies and Western Beverage both have drive-through windows, right? But it's just different. It's a drink that is ready to go. So that business model, I think, really is dependent upon our staff to step in, to educate our customers, to give them that great experience. Have music on, have the environment, have the colorful signs, the enticing pictures of the drinks and the Jello shots or whatever we have, whatever our specials are, and then communicating that with our vendors, making sure that we do have the products that our customers want, not just what they're trying to sell us,
Right.
and paying attention to the area of town we're in.
Right.
When I was up on Wadley, it made a difference on the product that I carried there versus where I am now. It's a different product. And as times change, when I first opened the Eskimo Hut on Wadley in 2002, I had this great idea that failed. And it was mix and match craft beers by the 6-pack. It failed. I had it for 2 years.
That does sound good.
I didn't sell, I bet I didn't sell 2 6-packs in 2 years. Wow. And I had 4 windows of all these different beers. I kept rotating them, trying to get, it was before its time.
Yeah.
And now everybody does it, right?
Yeah.
You can go in
Right.
anywhere, and that's what people are looking for. Everybody wants a craft beer. But I had to, after a couple of years, I was like, I finally woke up one day and I was like, this can be used for better products that do move, and I swapped it out. So that I think that realization helped me, and then my vendors tried to tell me, but I was ahead of my time. So
About 10 years?
Yeah, about 10, 12 years. That's fine, But so finding those, listening to your vendors, not only, but then you have to know what your core goal is as well. And I think if you're bringing something new to the area or things that you've seen in other areas, I think it's important to pay attention to those. But you're right with the efficiency and effectiveness and getting all that out. And, we want to give that customer the great experience when they pull through. So, man, this is great. And they want to make it a daily habit to just swing by all the time. So,
It used to be that, we treat the customers the way we want to be treated. That's long gone. It's more about treating customers the way they want to be treated. And it's really now about a customer experience.
Right.
It's not just a complaint center.
Right.
It's the idea that you are creating the experience that they're anticipating to have at your establishment. So even some of that is complex because, the biggest variable of any business is people.
Right.
And when you look at what people want, there's a huge difference between wants and needs. And I always find that wants sell better than needs. So if I'm listening to the customer, I'm really listening to what their wants and needs are to determine what I really need to have on the shelf.
Right. That's great.
I don't know how, businesses out in the world today actually operate, and maybe you can shine some light on that customer experience as far as what does it do to enable you to create growth?
I was talking to my manager recently at the Eskimo Hut about just different things that she sees, because we've been discussing marketing, forever, but more intensely the past 2 or 3 weeks, and focused in on things. And I'm like, what are you seeing people do? And she's like, they're always on their phone on TikTok. They're always looking at these videos. And we know that videos are the new advertising, prints going away, even pictures, they're not as effective anymore. So, watching technology change and paying attention to what the customers are looking at, what they're watching for. We even discussed hey, let's see if we can find a stay-at-home mom that comes through all the time, and maybe she wants to do videos for us. Maybe that's a good marketing way to give her something to do. Maybe we can throw some cash at her a little bit and let her make a little extra cash, but she's probably sitting at home all day, not doing anything, and maybe she can do something for us. But we pull through our drive-through, and back when I first opened, drive-through was boring. There was nothing on the walls. Now we have TVs with menus everywhere. Technology has just grown so much that it gives the customer a much better experience in a drive-through. You walk in and there's always movement going on. There's something, and it captures their attention. So I think paying attention to that and finding out what they're really looking for. And then, capitalizing when they do see something and they start asking for it, even if we just do a small post and, hey, that really worked, let's turn around and put our focus on that type of advertising. So.
Yeah. So I think that's a missing element that many business owners overlook as part of their business model, right? The customer experience, right? Because they're primarily thinking vendors, suppliers, what are my operations, what are my margins? It's all numbers, and it's all just very, very what was it, right brain or left brain, whatever the more analytical one is, right? They're focused on that. But what about the customer experience? What about that journey, right? That's a whole void that's missing from the business model that's most businesses don't go through, but they find out going over the years of process and learning.
Sure.
And say, something's missing here.
Right.
Okay, let's take look at what are the trends. TikTok is trending,
So true.
Yeah, so that's what meet your customers where they're at.
Right.
I think that's a huge what do you call it? Target.
Right.
And I got to say too, when we talk about the customer experience, it's relevant, I think, to how do you establish customer relationships. The experience actually introduces the relationship that you need to maybe turn around and capitalize on. As you just mentioned, we have to, enable maybe a digital world side of us because that's what they do. You're in their space. And for them to come to your space, you've got to be able to invite them with what they're currently doing. It's the same way with marketing. We just don't market to everybody and anything. You really got to look at what channel my customers are on. Are they on TikTok? Are they on Facebook? Are they mostly messaging on the phone? We need to message then if that's the case. It's really to find out the routine of each one of my customers to understand the persona of how we're going to market back to them to bring them back into the establishment. I think the biggest mistake today is that a lot of our marketing isn't really personable. It's just an advertisement slapped on, on a digital platform and says maybe the call to action is come see us. I always find that there's two parts of marketing, one to create the awareness and one that really creates the action. Do you combine them? Absolutely, when you possibly can. But mind you, you don't want to shoot a shotgun. You want to shoot a 30-30 through a scope to make sure that's my target. And a lot of times with businesses that are startups, well, my God, we don't have the money. We can't just throw 1,000 flyers in a neighborhood and hope, well, every one of those will call us back. And the chances are you only get 2 calls back. And then you got to think, what was the labor cost to make all those flyers, put all the ink, all the time that I took, laboring around the neighborhood, passing them out. Was the time worth it to get the return? Or do we need to know our customer more and more to ensure that we have the right return on the investment to make the marketing campaign work? So that too is a part of our business model, because if we don't know our customer, it's hard to sell, it's hard to invite, it's hard to retain. And then we wonder, well, what is loyalty? How do we create it? It always starts with marketing.
Right.
So that brings up something like, so you have 2 businesses that are, focused on their alcohol.
Right.
But they're completely different from each other.
They are.
They couldn't be more
But
different.
they're both really good.
Thanks.
So you're attracting different demographics here.
They're completely different, know, and you could even say they're competing businesses to a degree,
Yeah.
When COVID happened and the pandemic came along, of course the Blue Door was forced to be closed by the governor, but then the Eskimo Hut has its busiest months ever, so drive-through alcohol was just fine at that point,
Yeah.
And people kind of got a rein on how much they were drinking after a few months and said, oh, let's get back to normal. But
Yeah, it's easier to hide it, right? Where I don't have to go home and show the wife. I'm still at the office, honey.
Right. But no, that's a definitely good point to hit your target market.
Yeah.
I think that's probably some of the biggest challenges as business owners is to find that and build that relationship.
Right.
Because I see that with a lot of businesses that even friends, they open something and they think they can just open the business and put a manager or an employee at the front desk or
walk away
wherever it is and just let them do the right things. And you may train them right, but unless they have that constant and that ownership there to help them, I think that's a lost. I've seen a lot of businesses go out because the owners don't spend the time developing those customer relationships, right. And I think that's a very, very important part. So
it's the old saying, "Build it and they'll come."
Right.
Right. Wow, we've really surpassed that, haven't we, in the marketplace?
Oh yeah.
You really now have got to fish to enable it, and then take note who came,
right.
So you can fish the same pond again. And I say that because channels are really what drives that. Where is my customer? How do I find them? What do I drive with? And how do I, continue to attract them to come back?
Right.
Giving them what they want.
Exactly. It's not about what I want.
Right.
Right. Because if it is, I'm not selling nothing. It's about what the customer wants. And again, the enticement, the curiosity is really in the marketing play. And it's really hard too. If you don't have that, it's like putting your thumb out and trying to get a ride. Trouble is, if I don't know you, I don't trust you. And if I can't trust, then I'm going to go by as fast as I can and not pick you up. Yeah. And that's really the same scenario, if you will, for businesses. If I don't trust you, how do I become a customer? So again, we have to build that every time to keep it continuous. My old saying is it's like a marriage, right? If I don't keep it fresh, new, and exciting, there's this thing called the 7-year itch. That can be applied to your customer. Apple's a good component of that, right? Keeping it new, fresh, and exciting. They always come out something new every year. And it keeps it to the point where my curiosity is always up to what's next. So the intention is to make sure that they want to come back for something new that you've developed, different from the last time they were there, to keep their interest attached to what you're doing.
That's a great point. I like that.
Typically, the way marketing actually works is when we're trying to discover and understand and putting together that marketing campaign of how are we going to fish them back into from the same pond or a different channel.
Yeah, you got to use a different lure.
Absolutely. Different message, different, it's all about the brand message that creates the brand equity. So again, that's really important in everything you do.
Agreed. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Cody, that's a lot of the marketing and the messaging you're putting out. That's you discuss. So on the more of the Eskimo Hut, right? You
right.
have your videos and it's that customer experience. So what's different about the Blue Door? How do you draw the people to the Blue Door?
My partner Erica is in charge of all the marketing and Instagram and videos, and she actually does a great job of being consistent and putting videos on the stories of Instagram. She's that consistency, I think, is what's very important. Yeah. I think dialing in on that customer, just like you said, with that same fishing pond, and then hitting them with what's relevant to them and getting them back in the door is the important thing. So, obviously creating a website, getting customers to follow there. So the website we have for the Blue Doors, I wouldn't say it's new, but it's not 10 years old. It's just a couple years old. Yeah. And starting the traffic on that, getting that's really helped us recently. And getting even employee applications or more so booking big parties. People want to book a little get together, whether it's a birthday party or a company outing or young professionals and whatever. They're booking through the website more because we're more top of mind and they're seeing us. and they're being directed toward a call of action website. So I think that's one of the bigger things that the Blue Door does more successfully than the Eskimo Hut at this point. So,
consistency is key. Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure. Like a lot of businesses, they'll be consistent for a while and then nobody's like, who's going to do that?
Right.
And it affects the bottom line.
Right.
Yeah, it goes back to what's fresh, new, and exciting, right? And that's always, I often find, honest to God, that your relationship at home is not much different than the relationship with your customers. There's times I'd like to say something and I know better. That's good customer service.
Right.
And there might be times, too, that I have to negotiate in a way that is really a mutual benefit. Not one outpowers the other in a play.
Right.
So, even the communication that you have with one at home or one that's buying from you is there's not a whole lot of difference in it. It's really about the idea that you're trying to create. Listen to that word. My wife would be proud of me. Trying to create a situation where it's comfortable, not loud, and you miss the message, but concise, to the point. And again, that key word that always pops up in my mind is be consistent with the message.
Right.
Don't go away from that. And I think if you do, you go away with what the integrity of the company is.
Right.
So stay focused, stay mutual. Stay on point, and maybe don't sway from who you really are to nail the integrity back where it needs to be.
Yeah, to piggyback off the correlation with relationship, right, at home, it's what I've heard. Want to feel heard and understood, right? So your customer, they want to feel heard and understood, right? Because what you're providing is your attention,
right?
And that attention can't be just some random, mix of words to to what they're wanting to get from you, right? It has to be very direct and intentional,
right,
with purpose.
Sure. Right.
So that's what a business is trying to communicate with their customers, so that I hear you, I understand what you want,
right,
I can provide that,
right.
It used to be the biggest word. I understand. I understand. And my wife will tell me, stop saying it. I get it. I understand.
Absolutely.
A couple of things I wanted to know is that you talked about investing and enabling startups,
Right.
already grounded, if you will, companies. What's the process of maybe a good company, a bad investment, or something maybe the investors are looking for to maybe jump on board?
As far as like a good investment opportunity, investors are coming in looking for someone who's really done their research and knows what they're talking about. If you have some experience behind it, that's even better, of course, But I think having all your information out there for them so they can really make sure that your information. Of course, numbers. And all my investors are looking and lenders are looking for businesses that are willing to put in some of their own skin in the game, right? So generally 20-25% of the total project should be already acquired, and it's not. It does make it hard for startups. Some people who are just they've got a cool idea, but they've only got $20,000 in the bank in savings or whatever. Then it makes it hard. I'm not going to say it's an easy thing to do, but going after that, making sure the numbers are right and that make sure it fits, make sure the return on investment not only makes sense for the investor, but it makes sense for the person running the business.
Absolutely.
And so many times I've had quite a few business plans put out there, and the owner of the business doesn't have a paycheck in there for themselves.
Right.
And lenders are like, no, you need to make money off this. We need you to stay motivated. We need you. And they're like, well, I'll just take the profits at the end. Like, no, you need a paycheck in there too. So those types of things are really important. Every good lender wants to make sure it's a great, viable business. And then, and looking at it, I mean, watch Shark Tank all the time, right? And all these things really look cool and they're fun. But the thing you notice on Shark Tank right off the bat, and we'll watch a couple episodes, they really don't invest in the projects themselves. They invest in the people, right? And they're always like, hey, tell me your story. How'd you get here? What'd you do? How much did you have in this? And sometimes it doesn't even have to be that much money they put into it, but the time and their heart and their soul into it. And that's where those are the types of things that you can look at, the lenders look at. And they're like, okay, well, most of them are like, hey, I can do a C-class customer, the one that has a 575 credit score. That's horrible, but as far as a bank would say, but these guys are like, what's your story? Tell me your story. What's your experience? Are you somebody who's been working for somebody for 20 years and now you want to do your own thing and this is how you're going to do it? Because if you've got that experience and you've got it, then they'll jump on that and they'll help out. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there. The bad ones are just the opposite, of course. Walk in with some fun idea, but you've got an attitude and, those types of things are the ones they kind of stay away from. But, lenders are really looking to get their hands in things, and it's pretty crazy in my mind that some projects you've got to have like a 2x return on money for it to be appealing to some investors. And when you start to get into some of these bigger deals, it's kind of crazy to me. They're like, I'll give you $10 million, but I want $20 million back in 4 years.
Right.
And like, how do you do that, right?
I know.
But there are projects out there that do that. So, and that they've become accustomed to it, and that's why they can demand it. So, some of the smaller projects, I mean, I've got lenders that work for anywhere from 2,000 to 50,000. I've got one lender, he works from 100 million to 500 million, and that's his sweet spot in the $200 to $300 million loan range. So, and everywhere in between, right? So, equipment. I have been finding some struggles with the oil and gas industry with smaller equipment, trailers and things of that nature, equipment side of things, because they're not in one stable place all the time. So, you go park a trailer next to an oil rig for, even a month or two, the lenders want to know how they can get that equipment back if someone ever defaults, and getting on somebody else's land with mineral rights and, all those things, it becomes a headache. So those things are a little more difficult. But the bigger the equipment, the more the dollar amount, the more they're willing to lend out on it. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, the no trespassing sign, I think, is enough now on the oil field side.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, we often see clients that come in, anywhere from, 2,500, maybe all the way up to, how much is a restaurant that we're looking at?
I think total that's 4 or 5 million.
4 or 5 million. But what I'm trying to put out there is that the lending range is, it's just huge. There's no really in between sweet spot to say that this is really the area of concentration. Of course, the size of business and what they're trying to do. I think what we're finding really hard times with right now, back to the oil, is supply. People that are starting up a supply company of some sort. There's too many variables to consider. And, equipment loans is one thing, a line of credit's another, but to try to get an SBA 504, it's like, and wrapped everything you got up to the asset to cover the deficit is almost unbelievable what they're asking for today. Not to mention the time it takes to get the loan.
Right. No, it's very difficult. You're right. And I've worked with a couple of those, and it's like a document, like, just please give me more. Go
I
get
want
this.
your dog's name.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Go get this insurance policy to make sure we're covered on this. Go, we want a due diligence fee of, $10,000 to come out and do an appraisal right there on the spot. I mean,
that too.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of different things, and it is really difficult, and I look at, I think one of the biggest education things for business owners is to not get so wrapped up in interest rates. We've been conditioned as home buyers mainly that interest rates are the devil. And, and like, look at your credit cards. Nobody wants to pay 20, 21% interest rate on a non-producing or non-income producing debt, right? So, but as business owners, sometimes you have to look at that opportunity. I had a guy one time called me up and was like, hey, I need to buy this $40,000 piece of equipment to do this job. And I was like, okay. I looked at it, I was like, how long have you been in business? What kind of volume are you doing? So we went through all of that. He got a horrible rate back. I was like, here's the rate. It's going to be 9% a month. And I was like, that's crazy. And I was like, he was like, I can't do that. That's insane. Why would I do that? And I was like, let me ask you about your job. You know, what are you buying this equipment for? He goes, so I've got this job next month. If I can get this, the whole project will cost, I can sell it for $120,000. I said, so you quadruple your money on the equipment.
Yeah.
And he was like, right. I was like, you only need the loan for like 2 months, right? And he was like, right. I was like, who cares if it's 9%? It could be 100%.
Yeah.
You're still going to make $80,000. It's okay. I mean, forget about the interest rate. It was absurd. Nobody in their right mind. But this is an income producing loan, right? Like he's going to buy equipment. It's going to produce income for him. And he's going to make money. He's going to own it free and clear after that anyway because he made his money back. So who cares?
And
so
you're adding an asset to your
to your balance sheet. That's right. Absolutely. So I think that education, is really important. And it's one of the reasons why it's hard with to go to say John Deere. Of course, they have their own financing company themselves. But, some of these other companies, they want a backup lender, but they want a rate sheet out there on how much the interest rates are going to be. Interest rates are going to be scary. I don't want to put that out in front of anybody because, but then some people understand it. They walk in and go, if I buy this tractor, I can produce this much product and I can make so much money that it doesn't matter. And
they don't realize that the interest rate doesn't matter in comparisons to the income that you're going to make.
Exactly.
Well, a lot of people need to know that. I hope they listen to this podcast. That's really interesting that people just don't understand that. We just had a conversation here not too long ago about the multiple types of loans you can get as a business. And some of them didn't even know that, well, I can get a paycheck loan, I can get equipment loan, I can get a line of credit loan. All these different types of lending capabilities that you can actually put out there on the table.
Right.
A lot of them don't know that even exists.
Right.
We've had a couple of those in here, and they go, what? That's available?
Right. One that I wasn't even very familiar with, but I knew it existed, I just didn't know much about it, are bridge loans, right? Bridge loans, they sound pretty simple, but a lot of companies, bridge loans are meant to be enacted super quick. Hey, I need this loan next week.
Right.
I need $2 million next week. And those bridge loans are pretty expensive, right? Because they don't get to do all the due diligence that they would like to do, but that gets you in the door. It gets you that opportunity to make that money. And as soon as you get the money for the bridge loan, you can go out and get the proper loan, an SBA loan that may take you 3 or 4 months to get approved for and go through it all. But at least you have that opportunity to get that business started with that bridge loan to get you started. And might be a little expensive, but at least you're there and you're up and running. So yeah.
And you can take that and put it into the SBA.
Absolutely. The SBA will pay that bridge loan off, no problem. So yeah.
So
that's great.
Again, that's something a lot of people just don't know.
Great to know. Yeah. It's because we're balancing the value to the cost of capital.
Right. Absolutely.
That value, that opportunity is there. Cost of capital that's a given.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So yeah.
Love it.
The other couple of things that I wanted to hit on in this podcast was what kind of information would you give to startups and to enable them, I guess, to be in the market for a long period of time, long term? What are some of the key components that you believe are so important to that?
I think really taking a hard look at yourself.
Yeah.
Figuring out what your strengths are. Recognizing what your weaknesses are, not being afraid to admit it, going out there and finding the other people to help you run the business for the weaknesses. Finding that right team. Early on, back in my management at Outback days, one of my joint venture partners handed me a small little book and was like, hey, this is a good management type book. And it's the 1 Minute Manager. I'm sure you've heard of it. Yeah. Super easy, real little book. I have all my managers read it, not because it's like a Bible of anything, but
Right.
it's very good knowledge, and I reread it every 2 or 3 years just because it kind of helps you go back to basics. It helps you realize, hey, treat people how you want to be treated, and especially your team, right? Your management, and figuring out what the people like, and communication. Because I can teach anybody how to make a daiquiri or a cocktail, but I can't teach anybody how to understand other people. You have to figure it out. People are the hard part, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what the business is. You got to learn your people and how to treat them, and your customers, and how to get them in the door. And if you can do those things, I think you're on the right track, and you'll have a successsuccessful business. So.
Yeah, Michael says it all the time. The greatest variable in any of this is people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, a book works, sets the foundation. That's all I got to say about that. But when you wind up being in the market, and you're talking to a man here that's been in the market, you'll find that no matter what you do, it doesn't really matter unless you have buy-in from your customer. So the book works for a foundation, but it's the experience that puts together the customer and the owner to make something work. So I will always toot my horn on that one. Many a times I've had to step back and look at that.
Right.
It's not about me, right? It's about what I can do for my customer.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, this has been great. Lots of fun. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Happy to answer questions. Not so.
I got to say, you're really one of my picks from last year that I wanted you to come in here. I know a little bit about your background and who you are, what you've done. And to me, you've got an amazing story. For a guy that went from a restaurant to really owning 2 different companies, being involved in venture capabilities, you just don't hear somebody with that type of, let's just say, the magnitude of experience, putting it together and making it a business. I preach this a lot, where it's easy to have a business, but it's even more important if you have a background of business that you can portray.
Right.
And I just got to say, I'm really thankful of you being in here today, being a part of our podcast. I feel honored, to be honest, to have a guy of your stature. So I just want to say first, thank you for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. I
That's
enjoyed
been
it.
great,
Yeah,
for sure. So before you leave,
sure.
why don't you tell everybody how they can get a hold of your businesses? Where do they find you at?
Okay. Yeah. Instagram for Eskimo Hut Midland and the Blue Door. Pretty easy to find there. newanglecapital.net is my website for the finance company, and there's a form on there to fill out if you have questions and just want to talk about anything. Then I've got 2 phone numbers, Eskimo Hut and Blue Door, 432-349-5099, and then New Angle Capital's 432-741-2995. So easy enough.
Yeah,
All right.
awesome. Well,
Then I'm going to go ahead and close and head on over to the Blue Door.
There you go.
wait. Hey, it's 5 o'clock, isn't it?
Somewhere.
That's right.
Let me just say, if you haven't been to the Blue Door or the Eskimo, you are truly missing out. You've got to get that on your schedule to drive by on the way home, pick up what you need at the Eskimo. If you want a nice evening, get away from the stress, my God, if you're not at the Blue Door, you're missing out.
Cool. Well, appreciate it for sure, Cody. And man, we'd love to have you back on sometime.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me. All right.
Awesome.